So, stop me if you've heard this one before. Say you go to your favorite online retailer and buy a shiny new device to help you create video edited magic. You get it home, get it hooked up, and test it, but then on the day that you actually go to use it, it doesn't work. That's why this whole video is going to be narrated after the fact. That's so sad. Aleska played Espiados. Welcome to the view from my helmet on my Ducati 900 Supersport. I've owned this bike for about 9 months at this point, done quite a bit of work on it, including rebuilding the carbs, fluids, relining the tank, all kinds of stuff, and I'm finally comfortable enough with it to take it out of town, and so that's what I wanted to do today, going from Wichita, Kansas to the tourist attraction of Coronado Heights, and then back. This would be a trip about 153 miles around, which isn't anything to write home about in most circumstances, but on a vintage Italian Supersport, it is going to be a journey for sure. The first and most immediate issue is the fact that we're riding through the neighborhoods in Wichita instead of on the highway, and of course that is because Wichita decided to be simultaneously under construction absolutely everywhere, and Ducatis do not do well in stop-and-go traffic, you know, being air-cooled and all that. So we had to go around the highway, go through the neighborhoods on our way to the town of Newton to meet up with David, aka the car wizard of Hoovie's Garage, on his absolutely monstrous Yamaha Stratoliner 1900, which is probably the fastest bike in our group, if I'm honest. Yeehaw! My gosh, that bike sounds amazing. Joining me on this trip is my buddy Kenneth on his WR250 Supermoto on Michelin Road 5 tires, which actually makes it probably the most capable bike overall I've ridden. It's absolutely ridiculous what a high-end sport bike tire drives like on a Supersport. In this shot, you can actually see the cloud formation in front of us. We'll get back to that later, but that's a bit ominous, isn't it? I've seen this thing a few times locally in Wichita. It's actually really well made, even though it looks a bit slapped together. How majestic. Oh, come on, turn radius, don't let me down. Almost did. At this point, we were joined by my buddy Malachi on his Ninja 300 carbureted model. Of course, he went and put a slip-on exhaust on it to make it slower and louder and just worse in every way. Behold the Kansas scenery. It is flat fields absolutely everywhere. A large part of the state is like that. The Flint Hills are to our northeast from Wichita, and they provide a decent variation in scenery. And then in the southwest, we have some more sort of rugged terrain, but the middle-ish part of Kansas like this, especially the northwest, it's all just flat. At this point, the Ducati's running pretty well. There's really nothing for me to keep an eye on. These bikes don't actually really have anything in the way of instruments. No temp gauge, nothing like that. Just a tachometer and a speedometer, and that's it. You've just kind of got to listen to the bike and go from there. Someday, I really aspire to ride a bike as comfortably as Kenneth is doing. My gosh, look at that soft suspension. Long, straight roads through big, flat fields. That's pretty much the main portion of this journey. We're actually going up the old highway, Route 81 at this point, which runs alongside the current Highway 135, which is a larger divided highway. Right now, we're actually going past CHS McPherson Refinery. I used to work in the oil and gas industry and actually took a tour of this place. And regardless of your stance on oil and gas, if you're anything of a nerd like I am, the process behind the refining process is absolutely... The process behind the process? Yes, perfect. The process itself is absolutely astonishing. The expense of various petroleum products is just what order they come out of the crude oil in. You know, the easiest stuff to get out of it in the first stages is the cheapest, and they pretty much just do the same thing to the crude over and over and over and over until they're just left with something that's essentially worthless, which gets loaded into these train cars there in that last stage on the Tan Tower to be shipped off for, I think it's like a concrete filler or something like that. Those storm clouds are getting pretty nasty, but at least we have these fluffy boys to keep us company. The place we're going to is called Coronado Heights, and it's actually a bit of a tourist destination that is completely fake. And what I mean by that is that it's just kind of a thing that someone decided to build there. They were like, yes, we need a tourist attraction here. And so they made it so. In theory, it's the place where Francisco Vasquez de Coronado gave up his search for the 7 cities of gold and turned around to return to Mexico. So someone just kind of built this castle-shaped shelter up there and was like, yep, it's a tourist attraction now. What's funny is that the city of gold, El Dorado, is actually in the other direction. It's just east of Wichita. Could have saved the Spanish a lot of trouble, really. This is the town of Lindsborg, which is what Coronado Heights is said to be in, even though it's just kind of near. Nice little town. Their downtown is actually pretty cool if you're in the area. I suggest checking it out. They have some neat car shows and whatnot. Something amusing I noticed is that at very specific speeds, you can see Kenneth's chain slapping around as it reaches a harmonic. It doesn't sync up very well with the frame rate, but it was actually fairly violent. I wonder if you could feel it. Kenneth, if you're watching this is what I was trying to tell you about. Naturally, we all missed the turn. This is absolutely the appropriate terrain for a super sport. Perfect, just flawless. It's not like Ducati actually made a flat track motorcycle or anything. So this was built in 1936 by the Works Progress Administration. What you looking at?
I want to get really wide.
Yeah, really wide. This part of Kansas is actually called the Smoky Hills. I have no idea why, but right now I just call it the Cloudy Hills. I am still buzzing. My hands are a bit numb. Certainly not smooth on the highway. Not sure if that's normal or not, but yep, there we go. The biggest problems I had on this drive with the Ducati weren't even mechanical. Well, not necessarily. These Ducatis are not smooth, and I Googled to find out why, and I actually asked on one of the owners' forums. I was like, hey, my bike is not smooth. How can I make it smoother? And they said, well, it's a hand-built bike. What do you want from it? The cylinders just straight up aren't identical, so it's going to run pretty rough. Unfortunately, what that meant for me is numb hands and numb giblets. Unfortunately, the throttle is also very stiff, so I had to grip very hard with my right hand compared to other bikes in order to maintain a constant speed, and that resulted in absolute agony from my right hand during this trip. Very, very jealous of the throttle lock that the Wizard had on its Yamaha. I'm probably going to buy one of those at some point if I do any more touring like this. Shockingly, what didn't hurt on the way up was my back. Despite the really aggressive lean angle on the Super Sport, my back did just fine. I attribute a recent steroid injection for that one, though. Two more hours of highway riding. I made it back home. I'm exhausted. My helmet doesn't appear to fit me quite right, so right here is just absolute agony. It was just pressing on my forehead super hard the whole time. And I skimped on the hearing protection. Do not do that, ever. That was a really bad move. But the bike did great. I'm definitely gonna look into a throttle lock or something similar because, ow. Let me know if you want to see me do any more trips with my vehicles, if this is the sort of thing you're into, going and visiting a castle on a Ducati, you know, not exactly the usual YouTube thing. And while I do love the Ducati, I think I'm probably gonna ride this a bit more. It's a bit smoother and everything else. Thanks for watching.